It's a very complicated subject, obviously, and there's many points of view, and it's not just what we carry; it's also what the environment carries. So you hear of stories of people moving into places and then having poltergeist activity or spirits there. We live in a world that has memory, and there's these energetic fields in spaces that are not really bound by time and space. And if something happens um, traumatic there or even happy there, that can be recorded in the space.
Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Welcome back, everyone. Assuming that you saw part 1 with my special guest, Jason Quitt. That's why I'm saying welcome back, because guess what? We're back with part 2. A lot of you we heard from during this very, very intense discussion with Jason. We were talking about the idea of dream infiltration, of beings, we can call them shadow beings, other sort of anomalous, often unseen forces that are messing with a lot of us. And the question is why? Where are they coming from? What are they there for? What do we have to do, perhaps, with at least some of these encounters? Well, Jason Quitt is back with me. Yes, for part 2. We are so excited. Jason, we got such an enormous response from our last conversation. So I know folks will be really anxious to hear what we have to say, or what you have to say. It's a conversation, of course, but what you have to say in this episode. Let me level set for you guys. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. Yes, we're going to continue to travel down the rabbit hole, if you will, of this very, very anomalous and yet very common phenomenon of otherworldly, we'll call them non-human entities that are interacting with us with a lot of mystery, often very cryptic, and people are often left unsettled. But rather than leave it there, what we want to try to do is get to the bottom of what can be done, if anything, that is in our control. Let's do this. I want to start by playing a clip that's the end of part 1. And I think that'll be a perfect jumping off point, Jason, for us to take this conversation where it's going to go, which I think you're going to like. So let's watch this. We'll be right back.
When it comes to these things, there's always a reason. Okay, there's always something within us that draws us to these things. For like the example I said before, is like if you're carrying a seed of anger, for example, then you're inviting something that likes that energy towards you. The only way is to strengthen the energy field, is what I've been taught, is to heal. And when I mean heal, I'm not talking about, physical ailments here. I'm talking about a spiritual or energetic healing, where all of us, okay, this is with every single person, even gurus out there, okay, this is with every single person. We all carry, like you say, baggage. We all carry wounds. We carry things that trigger us. And that is like the anchor in us that these things could attach to. So instead of fighting the beings and saying, we could fight the rest of our lives. All right. Every night we can fight an entity and get rid of it. And then the next night there's going to be another entity. Why? Because we haven't taken care of ourselves.
There you have it. That was actually in response to a question from one of our audience members, one of many who have been plagued with what he described as shadow beings and other entities and attachments that felt a little out of sorts as to where it's coming from. And Jason, I think you answered that perfectly. So I think we should pick up from there. We're going to be talking about solutions to the best of our ability today. Let's start with the energy field. I'm going to have you elaborate on what you just said there. Where do we start with this?
Well, it's a very complicated subject, obviously, and there's many points of view, and it's not just what we carry, it's also what the environment carries. So you hear of stories of people moving into places and then having poltergeist activity or spirits there. We live in a world that has memory, and there's these energetic fields in spaces that are not really bound by time and space. And if something happens traumatic there or even happy there, that can be recorded in the space. If there's memories in that place of, let's say, a war, like a civil war was fought in that area, you may have a lot of residual energy from what has been put into that land. The land collects that. And there's a saying, I wish I remember who this was from, but basically, if you continue to put bloodshed on a land, the land will actually want more bloodshed. So it has this kind of energy or feel that starts to become amplified in that area. So if a tragedy happens in one place, okay, I'll give an example. And I won't give any locations. I don't want to give away who this is, but there was a place that it was a building that young children kept dying in. So mothers would give birth and they would raise their babies in this building, but for some reason the babies they didn't make it. And it was happening so often in this building that it was a complete anomaly. And they realized that this building was built on an old orphanage. And when they dug in the backyard, they found hundreds of bodies of young children. And when that happened, any person that moved into this building afterwards, they told the residents, you cannot bring young children or have kids in this place because of what has been here for so many years. So something happened where these children in this orphanage were murdered. And because of that, it's still perpetuated far into the future. So obviously there's some type of force or memory or recording that has amplified that energy for some reason in that space. And the people that live there or know about it do not take children into that place. So things hold memory, and our energy fields are just like that. So when something happens to us, positive or negative, it's recorded in this energetic field. Many people would call this the Book of Life, or the Akashic Records.
Right.
And it's something that each one of us carries with us, and the land carries it as well, because the land is just like us. We're a reflection of the universe. And everything that we carry in our Book of Life, our energetic fields, as we step on the earth, we are an open book. Okay, as a human being, we can hide what we carry. But from a spiritual perspective or an energetic perspective, we can't hide it. So as we walk this earth, we are planting our seeds of what we carry without filters into the planet. And people can walk by where you walked before, and they can pick up that energy, and it can amplify what's in them. So you have this kind of group or collective morphogenic field that we share. And another example is someone cooking your food, going to a restaurant. If that chef is in the back and he's had a terrible day and he's just pissed and angry and emotional, and he's the one cooking your food, okay, he's placing his energy on your food. You can't see it. It may be the most beautiful meal, most delicious meal you've ever had, but you're taking on that energy field of the chef, like it or not. And you can flip out at someone afterwards. You're like, oh, I don't know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it came from the chef. And this is where the traditions also come for praying over your food. You don't want to take on the energy that it has collected from the farm to the table. Okay, if it's bad for you, you can get rid of it by prayer, but prayer is just a common word for transforming
Mm-hmm.
the energy. You know, it's not a religious thing, and it's many people say, "Oh, you're religious," but what this is like, I'm also religious in showering. You know, you got to clean yourself. It's not about religion. You just have to cleanse before you put it in your body. So the point being is, we have a responsibility for what we carry as humankind. And we don't believe that what we carry could affect or infect something else. All right, this is not true. There's a famous experiment, and I'm sorry, this is all off the top of my head.
Well, we decided that this is how we were going to do this
Yeah,
show today, so that's fine.
but cells, plants, they all found out that there's a communication between them that goes beyond chemical or even electrical. Well, it's a type of electrical, but they have found that ultraviolet light communicates between the roots of certain plants and also in our cells as well. So they did an experiment where they took a diseased petri dish and perfectly healthy cells petri dish, and they put it in two separate boxes in glass, and it was perfect. You know, one stayed diseased, one stayed healthy. Now what they did is they changed the glass to quartz glass.
Interesting.
And then they both became diseased. Why? Because quartz glass allows ultraviolet light to pass through it. Glass does not. So we are saying that there is a communication. Okay, so there's no like spores in the air that are jumping from a cancer cell to healthy cells. There's no, you know, there's no like virus jumping between that glass. The only thing jumping through that glass is light. And light has this ability to program and communicate with other things and other cells. So what I'm trying to say is that there is an invisible to us communication that's not electrical, that's not chemical, biological. There's a communication of energy. And in this form, we're talking about the communication of just light. So we can pass things on. Now, when I say we have to be responsible for what we carry, we need to learn how to strengthen and heal and let go of these things that we carry so we don't pass these things on. So, you know, there's a saying, you know, walk gently on this earth. Okay, it's what you carry makes you heavy. So let go of that, you walk gently on this earth. That's really what it comes down to. So when I started to learn all this, when I started to get downloads or information, communication, one of the messages I received was, I have to, before I do anything in my life, I had to heal and strengthen my energetic field. That was the message. And then I was told that my energetic field was extremely weak. My energetic field, and because my energetic field was so weak, it made me susceptible to manipulation, susceptible to attachments, and susceptible to being sick, mentally, emotionally, and physically. This is what I was told. And they said, before I do anything, I have to focus on my energetic field, because that is the foundation of who you are as a person. And that is what led me into Qi Gong and shamanism.
Yep. I didn't know whether you're going to keep going or not because you were on a roll. Well, that's a great pause, because this is where we want to go. We want to talk about that. I know that you give a brief overview of that message that you received in your book, Egyptian Postures of Power, in that was really the calling card for you, or the the clarion call for you, where you had to address that before you went any further in your exploration into this incredible journey of yours. I don't know what else to call it. So we want to talk about that. Thank you for that. My God, everything. Before we go right into that, 'cause I do want to spend the chunk of our time on Qigong and other methods of energy strengthening our energy fields. Just everything that you said, Jason, and you're obviously very well read in this area, is somewhat familiar to those who study the work of Rupert Sheldrake and the morphic or morphinogenic fields. I always get that wrong. The field, the electromagnetic, where you say that it's not electricity necessarily that's doing the transmission, and yet because we are electromagnetic beings, it can act as a literal conduit of transference, or transferring that energy from one life form to another. There's sort of this reciprocity, it seems, that's going on with us, the land, us with other people, just a constant feedback loop, essentially. And so when we understand that, and whether you can see it or not, doesn't matter. You can't see your, the broadband or whatever that is going on right now that's powering this computer and our cell phones, et cetera. We know that. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And needless to say, it does not denote how powerful or not it is. This is a very powerful thing, and we need to start taking it seriously, particularly now with all that's going on. We better mind our how we feel and how we're taking care of ourselves. You're absolutely right. So I just wanted to comment on that.
And
Qigong.
to
Go ahead.
and just to expand, we forget who we are. I mean, that's the bottom line. And when you break it down, you have to understand that your physical body is literally the vessel. It's the vessel of consciousness, and the physical body is made up of all the elements of the earth and the sky. It comes from space, the universe, and we are in this field, this electromagnetic field that is our atmosphere, the electromagnetic field, which is the magnetic sphere, magnetosphere, which protects us from the harmful cosmic radiation. We need that field to be who we are. That is our mind. That is our strength of who we are. That's our protection. And as a vessel, what the vessel is an active participant in alchemical transformation. What I mean by that is that it is constantly taking energy in and releasing energy back out into its environment. It is this conduit, this bridge of energy that moves. So it's moving energy and transforming energy. Just, simply even saying breathing, you breathe in air, which is the oxygen you need to fuel your body, and you breathe out the toxins, which is carbon monoxide. Oh, take a breath. And so it's a constant cycle. All right. It's a constant cycle of energy. Same with food, same with calories. You need to burn the calories to survive. And we are part of this system. All right. We breathe each other's breath. And in ancient times, it was called the breath of life. In Qi Gong, it's called Qi. In Egypt, it's called Ka. In the Vedas, it's called prana. And this breath is literal life. And when you connect your mind, and this is one of the rules of Qi, or one of the laws of Qi Gong, is that wherever you focus your attention, wherever you focus your mind, you focus energy, you focus Qi. All right. So if we put our energy to, or our mind to the breath that we breathe, we're consciously taking in and exhaling this life force energy, this breath of life. And we're becoming one with this environment, because we are one with this environment. We are made up of this environment, and we transform this environment. If you look at the plant world, trees, etc., we breathe their waste product. We breathe their oxygen. And our waste product feeds them. So carbon dioxide feeds the plants. We actually, our animals, mammals, insects, we clean up from the plants. We take their fruit, we take their seeds, we take their leaves, and we transform them into either fertilized soil for them, so it actually keeps the trees healthy. This is in a perfectly natural environment. And we plant the seeds of their fruits. So we help build them. So it's this symbiotic relationship between us and the world. And the moment that whatever happened in our past where we stepped outside of that and separated ourselves, which we continue to do, we continue to separate ourselves. We've gone from a symbiotic relationship with our environment because we knew that by supporting our environment, the environment supports us. So the healthier that we get our environment, the healthier we become. And the more that we separate and the more that we destroy the planet, the sicker we become. Mm-hmm. And it's so obvious. There was this study where this is with astronauts. When astronauts go into outer space and they start to leave the atmosphere, they start to leave the magnetic field. And the magnetic field goes out pretty far, actually. But when they're out in space, almost immediately, because of no gravity, the body starts to atrophy. Basically, the body starts to die. Literally, that's the simplest term. You go into space, your body immediately starts to die. Okay, you get weaker and weaker and weaker. Another thing that was very interesting that they found was the mind. Their memories started to go. The first cosmonauts, their memories started to just disappear. And they couldn't understand why this effect was happening to these astronauts. They were losing their memory. And they realized that the body and the mind is tuned to this electromagnetic field. Some people talk about the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann resonance, just to make it simple, is ions from the universe, solar radiation, hits our atmosphere, gets collected. It ionizes the atmosphere. And then through condensation, through lightning storms, you get lightning strikes hitting the ground of the earth. So there's thousands of lightning strikes hitting the earth every moment. And it sends this kind of wave signal across the planet. And the resonance of that wave between the ground and the ionosphere is what we call the Schumann resonance. Mm-hmm. And they found that human beings have been developed for millions of years in this environment of this resonance, of this electromagnetic field. And that to be in that electromagnetic field keeps us healthy, because our brain waves operate in the exact same frequencies as these atmospheric
That's correct.
waves of energy.
About 7.8 hertz, I believe, second.
Yes.
I'm very familiar. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it varies constantly, by the way, everywhere from like almost 0 to 100 hertz. And that is exactly the same as our brain waves, exactly the same. So we have been developed into this world in that sea of energy. And for the first time in history, since the experiments of Tesla, so we're going about 100 years now, where they could electrify and send electrical frequencies through the atmosphere, like radio waves, microwaves, magnetic waves. And they have found that even though it's invisible to us, it has never been seen on this planet. Okay, so what we've done in this short amount of time has never been seen. Electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic radiation that's being beamed in our atmosphere right now is a million times higher than what it was 100 years ago. A million times higher. So we don't know the effect that that's having on us long term. We don't know the effect that that's having on the life on planet Earth. You know, they say birds and insects, they need the natural streams of energy to navigate. So we're living in an environment. I don't know how we steered this way, but we're living in
I'll
an
bring it back.
environment.
Don't worry. I'll bring it back. But you're good. This is good.
We're living in an environment that further distances ourselves from what we would consider a healthy, normal environment that our bodies, minds, spirits, emotions flourish in. And this also has, I would say, altered the human condition where, like, for example, in Japan and in many other places in the world that is highly electrified with dense population and like a million Wi-Fis and towers everywhere. Almost every single person there is on sleeping pills. I mean, it's an epidemic. They just can't sleep in these environments. So it takes us off this natural system. Now, the whole concept of Qi Gong, the whole concept of energy is we have a homeostasis. We have a natural symbiotic relationship with our environment. This is how we're built. It's not something we gain, okay? It's not something that we have to get initiated into, okay? There's nothing to this that is out of the natural realm of who we are. And who we are is a product of our environment. Our physical bodies is the vessel of transformation, standing with our feet on the earth. The earth has a negative pull, okay? Think of it electricity-wise, it's a negative pull, draws down. The air is naturally positive ionization. There is negative ionization of the air. It's usually when you get close to running water,
I was just going to say
waterfalls,
water. That's right.
forest.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it changes it a little. And negative ionization of the air, or negative ions, actually bring us into that homeostasis. It calms us, it relaxes us. That's why they have negative ion generators or salt lamps. They say be in negative ions and you're going to relax. And when your body's relaxed, what does it do? It starts to heal, right? But when you're not connected to the ground, especially in buildings, you're building up a very large positive charge. So if you're sitting in front of a computer, or if you're in a building and you're not grounded in that environment, there's a large amount of positive ionization. And it's like getting the life sucked out of you. That's the feeling. It ages you, basically. So that's why people, when they leave their job or leave in front of their computer, it's like their eyes are done. They just got to lay down and rest because they just can't take it anymore. So the point is, when your feet are on the ground, like a natural person in their natural environment, their arms are in the air. Positive ionization. The body takes the two polarities, because everything is made up of these two polarities, and it combines it in the body, just like the yin and yang symbol, this vortex of the positive and negative ionization in the body. And when you take the two polarities and you join them together in harmony, okay, when everything is in balance and harmony, you create power. just like a battery does. When you take the negative and the positive, you put them together, you create this direction of energy. Okay, it's a direction of flow. And the body does this absolutely naturally. There is nothing that you have to do this except be who you are. Okay, there's no secret. There's no secret to this. And the body itself is made up of sacred geometry that is found in our natural environments. All right, so we have the same Fibonacci sequences that make up our hands, our arms, our bodies. We have certain proportions of the physical body that are in resonance or match certain mathematical equations we find in nature. So we have this other connection. Now, this is the only way I could describe it, which is the simplest way. You know how the old television sets had those bunny ear antennas? And yeah, I know I'm that old. Okay.
Wasn't that long ago.
Not that long ago. I grew up like that. And then to get the channel, you had to kind of move these antennas around until boom, you hit it. And you get that signal, that channel, the channel puts on the program. So to get a clear signal, you have to change the angles of these two rods, these two antennas. Well, okay, we have two antennas, right here. So it's a very similar concept, is that the body has natural postures. These are not out of ordinary postures. These are the postures the body naturally goes into. And during these postures, the energy that goes through the body changes. When I mean change, I mean it could change its direction. It could change where the energy is circulated or where the energy ends up. Okay? So by changing the geometry of your physical body, just like they teach you in yoga, Tai Chi, Qi Gong, meditations, by even mudras, okay? You change the geometry of your body. You change the way energy moves through you and the environment. That's how it works. All right. So even if you deleted everything, okay, if you imagine we are not brought up in any religion, any programming of good versus evil, just go straight to clean plate. Who are you in your environment? You move and circulate energy, and you collect energy. And this is the entire basis of Qi Gong. And, many people think that you continue to build and build and build energy. It's the same as saying, I'm going to continue to blow up a balloon. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative energy. You blow that balloon up too much, it's going to burst, or it's not going to go further. And that's the same thing with cultivating energy, is you can only hold the amount of energy that your body is capable of holding. All right, so how do you change that? Well, you slowly start to release energy. You slowly start to strengthen your energy field. And the more you do that, the more you can hold. That's how it is. So in my understanding and what I've been taught is that it's an exchange of energy.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Okay. Not I'm going to hold on to this good energy and get rid of this energy here. It doesn't work like that. It's the movement of energy. That's what you want. All right. So just like a breath, an in-breath and an out-breath, this is exactly the same as Qi or Qi Gong. You have to allow the circulation of energy to move through your body, move through your organs in a natural way to connect yourself to your environment, the natural environment. And by doing this, you start to have this, I would call it a communication with higher realities. And it starts with at the bottom line, doing Qigong, it's all about sense and sensitivity. That's what it is, sense and sensitivity. So when you start to practice and you start to circulate energy, what you're doing is you're coming into your body, you're being present. All right. It's not like leave your body, astral travel, things like that, even though that can happen. It's all about being present in your body and sensing what's going on. So if I'm sitting in a posture or meditating, I'm tuning into my physical body and seeing what's going on. That is the purpose. Because I'm communicating. My mind is trying to communicate with the body, which is also an intelligence. Okay, your body is an intelligence and it can communicate to you. And it does that through the way that it communicates, which is feeling. Okay, your body communicates through feeling. If you have pain in your body, that's a communication telling you you need to look at this. All right, and then people go, oh my God, I have pain. I have to take all these pills to silence it. Well, that's not going to help. It's just going to silence your communication of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So it's telling you there's something wrong, there's something there, and that is a red flag. So when I go into the meditations or the Qigongs and I start breathing and doing the postures, I'll start to sense what is wrong. Do I have pain in certain parts of my body? What do I feel? Is there cold spots, hot spots? What am I feeling? And then if there's pain, then I just tune in with my mind and breathe. And where my mind goes, the Qi goes, the breath of life goes. And it starts to bring energy back to that area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just talking about the simplest forms.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. I'm
Yeah,
going to
of
stop you because
course.
you're going into a full lesson. I want to stop you because I know, I'm sure that most folks are kind of following the trajectory of how we ended up in this conversation, but I want to
Yeah.
just remind everyone and just kind of bring it back a little bit as to, no, this is really, really good. How, and as I'm listening to you, I can kind of imagine how we might apply this same principle of energy exchange, really using or utilizing or getting into a relationship with the environment, really consciously through breath, as an example. And by the way, one of the definitions of the word spirit is simply breath.
Mhm.
So breath is integral to this entire magical process. But getting into what I call it, mitigating the effects of some of these nasties out there, let's just call them that broadly,
Mhm.
or perhaps getting rid of them altogether or annihilating them, using this method to do that. That's where I kind of want to see this going.
Okay.
So just wanted to bring that up again because it is related. It's all related. Let me just ask the question. How might we apply a process like what you're describing to start to lessen the effects even
Mhm.
of some of these strange encounters and nasties that come in the form of shadow beings, etc.? How is it related?
Very, very good question. How is it related? Well, I'll just say that every moment you're in a state of being, all right, you are constantly in a state of being or in a state of a certain mindset, for example. And that mindset or state of being has its attachments, has its fields that it's connected to. So, because you're connected to these forces that are outside of you, your energy, like I said, where you focus your energy, where you focus your mind, is where your energy goes. So if you're focused on certain things, and we used the example of anger before, so we'll continue on that line. If you focus on that anger, that thought, that emotion is now sending that energy out to other beings or fields that need that energy to survive. Okay. So when you start saying enough is enough, I'm going to change, once you've made that decision, that's the number one first step, is you have to make the decision that you want to change. You don't want to connect with that anymore. You don't want to feed that anymore. what happens is the moment you start to starve that energy, it becomes, the first thing that happens is it starts to amplify. Okay, so you feel more angry, more upset. All right, so it's this opposite effect. And this is also why people do fasting, because food is a source of energy, and it helps feed your emotions and your thoughts. So when you eat and you're fed, um, your energies and emotions then transfer that to those other beings or fields. So when you start to fast, you start to weaken that connection to those beings, and that's what's taught in many traditions, is fasting for purification. So that's kind of like step number one, is making the decision to let it go, and then to kind of starve off these energies. So when you start feeling that emotion, you say, no, I'm not going into it. When you start getting those thought forms, you say, no, I'm not going there. I'm going to focus my energy on healing myself and getting better with myself and changing my focus to something more positive. And at first, there's a reaction to it. Because if you're saying I'm shutting off the tap, whoever these beings are, they're going to say, we're going to try everything in our best interest to not let you shut this off because we don't want to lose you. All right. It's like a cell phone company. They want to keep you as a client. So they'll try anything to keep you on your contract, basically. It's a good analogy, trust me. So basically that's it. And then what you do is you start to strengthen yourself with what we would call beneficial energy. So the energy of the environment. And we start to bring it in and start to strengthen ourselves. And as we start to release those thoughts and emotions that have these connections, we're filling it with the energy of the earth, which is this natural energy force, which is part of our homeostasis and symbiotic relationship. And just to go back a couple steps, it has to do with the disconnection. All right, everything has to do with this disconnection from our environment. And because the environment feeds us this natural stream of energy. All right, the sun feeds us this natural stream of energy. The earth feeds us this natural stream of energy. And the moment we start to cut out our energy from the source, which we can call it the universe or source or whatever, we as human beings start to look for other energy sources to sustain ourselves. And everything carries energy. Everything carries energy. So we can derive energy from basically anything. But there's certain energies that people tend to go for. For example, alcohol. Okay, alcohol is an energy that sustains you, just like food. So some people that are disconnected from the environment, they feel weak. They got to eat. They got to continually eat because they need that energy source. They'll drink. They'll do drugs to get an energy source within them. So that's where you get these addictions starting to come from, is this disconnection. Also obsession. So if you're obsessed with something, an obsession is somebody trying to continually take an energy from somewhere. That is an obsession. So what you're doing is you're draining or pulling energy from something, someone, or some situation. So because of our need to eat energy, because of our need to sustain ourselves energetically, and if we're disconnected from our natural source, we start to become dependent on these other natural streams. So there was one healing I did with another shaman so many years ago, but this has always stuck with me, is we were doing an entity extraction from somebody or on somebody, and the entity started to speak through the shaman, and we were like, you have to leave. You have to, I'm still learning. I'm still kind of naive in this. And we're like, you have to leave this person. And I'll never forget this. The entity said, I will make this person's life a living hell until they decide to let go of me. And it's like, okay, what do you mean? They're like, this person is holding me hostage, so I'm going to make their life miserable. Okay, it took me a while to understand what was going on, because I realized that it was through this disconnection from the earth, or disconnection from the source, that these people have developed a need to take other energy sources and taking it from not good places.
Right.
So they're literally, for them to feel fulfilled in life, to feel normal, they need to hang on for dear life to these other sources of energy. And these other sources of energy are saying, well, there's a price to pay for holding on to me.
Mm-hmm. So let me just, that's powerful, and more than powerful. That's creepy and revelatory and all of the above. This entity was actually feeling not like the person that it was attached to was sustenance, or how they were living was a form of sustenance, but they actually felt that they were being held hostage. So they didn't want to be there, is what you're saying. The entity,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's why I'm saying there's not one answer. It's not a one
Right.
size fits all world here. It's not black and white. Okay. Every single person is different, an individual. Every situation is different.
Sure.
And you can't just say, okay, well, I believe that this is the reason, so I'm going to fight it this way. You can't.
Right.
Absolutely. You can't do that. And the
Right.
shaman that taught me said the most brilliant line I've ever heard. And he says, I teach you form. Okay, so I teach you form. So I'll give you a list of 1 to 100, and you follow every single step from 1 to 100 to do what you need to do in this work. Okay. And I'm like, well, okay, this is very difficult. They're like, yes, but we have to teach you form so you can become formless. All right. So once you learn how to do all these things, then they say, now you know what to do. Throw that stuff away and just do it. All right. So you need to learn form to be formless. And that's why I say every situation is different. Is different.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Because there's such diversity, every situation is so different. For an individual, Jason,
Mm-hmm.
who is being plagued by some, just broadly, we'll call it interference, maybe different than the next person. We got a lot of comments from our last show, and we should go through, well, I've gone through them, and I think you have too, but you'll see a variety of scenarios. There seem to be common threads, but I'm sure they're all a bit different. How would an individual get to the bottom of determining what their situation is? As an example, what about regression?
Mm.
Let's say we can't go to a shaman, or we decide that we want to just devote our entire lives to this new sort of interface with uh, the natural world. Although I think it's important for all of us to try to. But let's say we're in an acute situation and we need to try to start the process, at least, of addressing what's going on. Things like regression or hypnosis. What might you suggest to start to
Um,
understand?
it it really does come down to an individual basis. And what I mean by that is that, let's say you go for a regression, or you go to a psychic, and they tell you this whole story. This is what happened in a past life. This is what happened in this environment. This is why this is happening to you. Some people take that information and um, start to obsess over it.
Mm.
And sometimes because now they're focused on that, they make the situation worse, not better. And I've seen that happen. All right. So what I would suggest is you could know or you don't have to know. The body works exactly the same in either situation. All right. So if you start to cleanse or purify the environment, yourself, your mind, your emotions, that is the best place to start no matter where you are. And this was also, that was in the back of my mind when I started energy medicine school. When I was in school, they were teaching us all these methods of, like using essential oils, for example, right? Use this essential oil for this, use this essential oil for that, or, this protocol for this and this protocol for that. And then the first thought was, well, a lot of these things are very expensive and not a lot of people have access to them. How can you do this work if you don't have access to any of this stuff? And I think that's what we're talking about here. Your body and mind is the best tool available to you. All the other things, like crystals, smudges, things like that, these are, the shamans, they call them fetishes.
Mm-hmm.
These are just little things that, with the right focus intention, amplify your abilities. They amplify what you are trying to do.
But it comes from you.
But
It ultimately comes from you.
That is the thing, right? So people will pick up like a pendulum and go, oh, it's not moving, it must not work. The pendulum only swings because of you. You're holding the pendulum. It's not a spirit going like this with the pendulum. Yeah. It's not how it works. So it really ultimately comes down with you. And these are what I'm talking about here. This started to happen to me literally 20 years ago. Okay, it's taken me 20 years to talk to you about this. And I've changed my line of thinking many times. Okay, so you need to be flexible in your ideas and thoughts. Okay, because I've been wrong. All right, and I'm not afraid to admit I've been wrong. But we have to move forward with better information, right? So, I lost my train of thought already.
Well, I'll add to it since there's a lull.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Look, in the journey years, have heard me talk about this before, where I feel that our entire lives and our being free will beings is a big experiment in improvisation. I believe in improvisation. I mean, you're talking to someone that was trained in TM at the age of 13. And somehow intuitively, Jason, I knew to toss the mantra and start working on my own protocols, even improvising them, creating them, experimenting with different processes, discovery as creative beings. That in and of itself, to me, is a part of the journey. Forgive the cliche. We are looking for a one size fits all. Just how can there be a one size fits all if we're individuals? So I agree with you. So as I ask the question that, what would you suggest? It's a spectrum, right? It's about exploration, I think, individually.
Well, I can only give you what was given to me. And it's not the only answer, but it's the answer that helped me get to where I am. All right. And that answer came from many different places. Because remember, I went to energy medicine school. I went for shamanism training. And then my own journeys and experiences, my own out-of-body initiations and things like that, which happened outside of all those things. All right. So there's many things that shaped me to who I am. But the one thing that was consistent in all of it, that was basically the foundation of all of this, was the Egyptian postures, was the Qi Gong. And what that was me building a foundation, strengthening my own energy, and being present in the physical that made me learn and sensitize myself to what's actually going on. Because remember, many people can't feel energy or know energy. And by doing the Qi Gong, it sensitizes you to your energy. Like I said, it's sense and sensitivity. It sensitizes you to your environment, to yourself. And you start to feel for the first time what is your energy, what is not your energy. And I think that's one of the most important things out of all of this is knowing what is yours and what isn't yours, so then you can separate them. And once you start to separate them, then you know that you don't need to take this on because it's not yours. It's a choice to take it on.
Right. Always.
And, when we start to get into the whole free will thing, it's a very complicated thing because they say, well, you had this, they took you out of your body. You had no choice. It's true. From my human perspective, I had no choice. Maybe I didn't consider that the thing taking me out of my body was another aspect of myself. So it was actually me taking me out of my body. We always put this kind of negative connotation, and that's what I believed as well. Like for me, they were demons, started praying for the first time in my life because
well, then you
why?
had no other angle to look at. That's not what I wanted to say, but that was the assumption because that's the teaching.
Yeah.
I want to bring something up. By the way, we are winding down, I'm looking at the clock, and are we going over to the Patreon after show? I think we should for a few minutes because we can always continue the conversation a little longer. If Jason's up for it, we can do that. But before we do, we still have a few minutes here. I do want to address a couple of the comments from the last episode, as well as one of the journeyers who left a comment in the community tab, knowing that you were coming on, about this sense. I guess she had heard you before and had gotten this sense from you that your sojourns into the astral, etc., were all perceived as negative. I'm not going to answer for her. I'd like to have you answer, but I think you just kind of gave us a little taste of that the earlier perceptions of what you were experiencing, because you had nothing to compare them to outside of that, perhaps were, but now where are you? Or do you still feel that some of them are just downright negative and nothing more?
The thing is, when you're talking about negative in that sense, you're talking about polarity, basically. But negative and positive is literally just one thing. It's just polar extremes of one thing. Okay. Now, yes, I've had positive experiences. Okay, I've left my body. I've seen some beautiful things. I've gone on initiations that were awesome. Okay, so there is positive experiences. But after looking back at all these negative things that I believed were negative, those experiences became my greatest experience, my greatest teachable moments. And because of those moments, I learned things. I was taught things through experiencing them. All right. So that's totally different from like reading what to do in a book. It's, I was put in that situation. And the thing is, I always knew I was protected, if that makes any sense.
It does.
I always knew that even in the most extreme things where I thought I was literally going to die on the other side, that is where the greatest power and enlightenment came from. Because I didn't die, but something else happened, which showed me my true power, which showed me who I really am. So it's almost like this kind of polarity is like, I'm going to show you this extreme on this side, but by exposing the extreme on this side, it boomeranged me to the extreme on that side. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the same thing with Qi Gong is like everybody's saying, okay, I'm going to ascend. What does ascend mean? It's like ascend means go up. Okay. But in Qi Gong, they go, if you go up, you're going to like fall over because you don't have your roots. Okay. So it's not about ascending this way, it's ascending like this.
Expanding is what we've called it.
Expansion.
Expansion
That's right.
with your
So
roots still in the roots still in the ground.
So as you go one step up, your roots have to go one step down. That is the only way it works. Only way it works.
Can I tell you a quick story
Of
about that
course.
and a message that I got from Talk About the Natural World? I have quite a close relationship with many of the trees in my garden. And many years ago, I remember looking out the window and I was looking at one particular tree. Well, I was actually looking at a kind of a grove of trees, and a question came to me about their very nature. How do they live? Where does their wisdom come from? Something to that effect. And I remember hearing, getting a download, a stream of consciousness that said, you see the tips of our limbs reach to the heavens, and our trunk beneath it are roots that go down into the ground. We understand the importance of going in both directions. We are infinite. That is the God's honest truth, Jason. That had to be 15, 20 years ago. I got that message. I asked, and that's what came back to me. The significance of the structure of a tree lends, gives a hint to how, where uh, that connection with the infinite comes from. They are down into the core of the earth and up to the heavens, and that's how they grow.
Yep.
And that's how they, I believe, obtain and maintain and retain their intelligence.
And what makes a tree strong?
The roots, well, the roots and the well, you
The
would say
wind.
the one. Ah, oh,
Okay.
yes.
So the more turbulent the wind is, the
Mm,
stronger the roots get.
I love it.
And that is the same thing as a human being. We are put through tests. Okay. The human condition is they push you through tests to the extreme. Living on this earth is not easy, and it was never meant to be easy. Okay, we have the dreams of the perfect world, but we live in reality. Okay.
Mm.
And it's through our suffering, it's through our struggles in life that we become strong. Okay. If everything is perfect, we become very weak,
Yeah,
and it'd be very easy to rip us up from this earth. Okay.
that's
Just like
powerful.
those trees.
I think I know where that was coming from. Things are difficult, beyond difficult, unimaginably difficult right now. And I think, me included, a lot of people needed to hear what you just said. I think a lot of us understand that at some level, but when you're being whipped around day in and day out at every level, at any level, you do ask the question, does it have to be this difficult? Well, maybe you just gave an answer as to why. There's a quote, if I could find it, I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to find it, that am crafting an article now about, let's call it the matrix. We were talking about that a little bit today, the matrix overlay, and talking about just why things are so difficult. And is there some grand message to be gleaned from the difficulty that we're going through right now? And I happened to pluck this quote from, do you remember the movie The Adjustment Bureau? I don't know if I brought that up last week. Loved the movie.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
around probably about 10 years at this point. But this, spoiler alert, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but from the character that plays, oh, he's kind of the part of the, what did you call it? They call them the bureau, the Adjustment Bureau, essentially. He says to Matt Damon, or at least at the end of the movie, Most people live life on the path that we set for them, meaning let's call them the controllers, right? Most people live life on the path we set for them, too afraid to explore any further. But once in a while, people like you come along, talking about Mad Demon, who knock down all the obstacles we put in your way. People who realize free will is a gift that you'll never know how to use until you fight for it. I think that's the chairman's real plan, that maybe one day we won't write the plan. You will. Isn't that great?
Very powerful.
It's very powerful, actually. And as I stumbled upon that, I had actually included that in another article I'd written on the higherjourneys.com blog. Go over there and check it out. It'll be ready shortly. I found that and I said, oh my God, is that not so apropos for what's going on? It seems like we're going through a lot of cruelty right now, but there has to be some inherent purpose, I feel, in all of this. Does it have to be this hard? Well, maybe. The stronger the wind becomes, the more tumultuous the wind, the stronger the roots, or at least we have the option to develop the strong roots. Some trees don't make it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. So with that said, Jason, any final words before parting and going over to Patreon? I have one. Egyptian postures of power. I started to say shadow beings. Egyptian postures of power, mysticism, movements, meditations. Get it, you guys, because if you thought this was good, yeah, hold it up, hold it up. We'll put a screenshot up as well.
Yeah.
Brand new, still. Go do it. We need. I'm gonna get a copy, so we can practice and keep our energy field strong. Lord knows we need it now. So thank you.
I'm very proud of this work, and took a long time to manifest that vision of our place and our connection to all this. So it's in there. It's in that book. So yeah, if you're interested in what I'm saying, that is definitely the book.
Go get it. Timing couldn't be better. No accident on the timing. And your website. Please let us know where we can find you online, because I know there's a lot of good stuff there.
thecrystalsun.com is my personal website where you can find all this stuff plus crystals. You could find me on Twitter, which is Jason_Quitt. Twitter is where I go to release steam. So I have a lot of fun on Twitter. Yeah, I
that's a unique thing to do on Twitter, isn't it? And you're still there. Congratulations.
Yes, I've been self-censoring since 2016.
Oh Lord. What about Instagram? You're over there too, right?
I believe I'm on Instagram, Jason Quitt, and on Facebook, I think it's Jason Quitt 7. You'll see me. I'm wearing sunglasses and holding a camera.
We can find you. You're pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Jason, you're great, man. Thank you so much. It's been great catching up in the last couple of weeks. You know, it's been, when did we last see each other in person? It was, I believe, Contact in the Desert.
Contact in the Desert.
Remember that?
Was that 2019 or 2018?
I believe 2019. I believe it was 2019, right before S hits the fan. Yeah. We'll be there again soon, or somewhere, right?
Somewhere.
And we'll see you all there too, journeyers, won't we? Yes. I'm looking forward to getting up on that stage. Actually, I'm going to give a shout out. Conscious Life Expo just happened this past weekend. I chose not to go this time around, but I heard it was a hell of a show. So I'm looking forward to getting some downloads from some of our comrades that were there, like Billy Carson and Linda Moulton Howe and Whitley Strieber and others. And let's see if we can get the download and what really went down there. I'm sure it was a great show. So congratulations to the folks over at Conscious Life Expo. Now, we're going over to Patreon for a few minutes to talk a little bit more about all this good stuff. I'm going to pick your brain on essential oils, because that's kind of been my thing lately. We know it's deeper than that, but these, what did you call them? Well, you could call them talisman. You could call them, what did you call them? So there's all these tools that we use, the pendulums and
fetishes.
Fetishes. Yeah. That's my fetish lately. And I love it. So you're great, man. Listen, thanks guys for joining us. I hope you got something out of this episode. And if you did, please leave a comment, a question. We're always here to continue the conversation. So join us again. But in the meantime, we're going next door and you're welcome to come. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Jason. Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye
Thanks.
bye.